Welcome to Out of Your Mind, near-death and out-of-body journeys, inspiring and uplifting conversations with those who have glimpsed beyond the veil. Get out of your mind and into your potentiality. With your host, clinical hypnotherapist, biofield therapist, Reiki sage master, and death doula, Anjii Bryers.
Annie Larson, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited about talking to you because you are not only a renowned psychic and medium, you are someone that has experienced a near-death experience. And when we were speaking about it just before, it was during a time of trauma, and you're not sure whether it's literally a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience, but we do know that it was absolutely divine intervention. I'd love you to share the story with the listeners because you're someone that walks your own talk as a psychic and a medium. And I'd love to hear the story and how it's changed your life and the way that you work with people as a psychic now.
Thank you so much, Angie, for having me on. So I guess I'll just go right into it. In 2005, I was diagnosed with a massive tumor, and it happened to be where my large intestine and small intestine meet. So, and I also was very ill, so they had to clear up the illness that I had in my intestines before they could do the surgery. And so it was a very long, drawn out process of antibiotics and stuff before they could do the surgery. And then when they actually got into the surgery, they didn't realize it was right where my small and large intestine meet. So it became a very complicated surgery. When I went in, they didn't know whether this was terminal or not. They were hoping for the best and that it would be a benign tumor, but it was about the size of between a racquetball and a softball. And so it was a very traumatic time in my life. I had young children. And when I went into the operating room, I actually had to say goodbye to my children in a way where, if you don't make it, or the other one too was if I had cancer, then I would be looking at treatment afterwards. So I really had to set my life in a way and in a course where my family could be taken care of for months to come while I was incapacitated. That's what I was kind of planning for. So I went into surgery in, as I said, 2005. Very traumatic surgery. It was supposed to be something that was 3 hours. I think it ended up being close to 10 hours. And during this time, I know I left my body. I saw the operating room. I saw them working on me. And then I saw an Edsel pull up. It was like a 1940s black Edsel. And in it was my mom and dad. And my dad got out of the car, and my parents, I'm from a very large family. I'm the youngest. And my parents were alone in the Edsel, and they were young. And they were so happy. I loved how happy they were. And my dad had been in the Air Force, so he was in his Air Force uniform. He was probably maybe a captain or a lower rank then. And he got out of the car, and I started screaming to him, "Dad, Dad, I'm here, I'm here." And he smiled, and he had these sunglasses on that pilots, because he was a pilot, that pilots wear. And he started waving to me, and he went around to the front, and he opened up the hood, and he was doing something under the hood of the Edsel. And my mom was in the passenger seat. And again, there were no children with them. My parents were very young, so happy. And there was my mom, and she was all decked out too. She had auburn hair, and she too was wearing her glasses, and she was wearing a scarf, kind of like Grace Kelly would wear a scarf back in those times. And I was screaming to my mom, Mom, I'm here, I'm here. And she wouldn't look at me, and she wouldn't turn around. and she wouldn't say a word to me. And it was so confusing because when I look at my life, I was probably closer to my mom than I was to my dad when they were both living. So it kind of surprised me that my mom wasn't greeting me. And I was screaming, Mom, Mom. And there was my dad, and he closed the hood and he got back into the Edsel. And then I woke up. And from this surgery, too, when I woke up, I had a lot of complications. And long story short, with that, I almost died. So I had my pulse ox went down to 63. They thought I had thrown a clot. Like, there were a lot of complications from that surgery. But the most beautiful thing was seeing my mom and dad. And I think with my dad, how it changed me. My dad was my protector. You know, I think everybody probably has their dad as their protector. But I remember going on a Ferris wheel, and I'm deathly afraid of heights. And going around this Ferris wheel with my dad and, you know, holding on to the rail and closing my eyes. And I remember my dad saying, I must have been 5 years old, saying, open your eyes, you know, look around, enjoy what you're seeing, because just relax and enjoy this ride. And so I did. You know, I sat back and I looked around and I relaxed and I enjoyed the ride of the Ferris wheel. And that's kind of the role that my dad has played in my life. You know, he's always been the person that's kind of like, you know, relax, look around you. And I felt when he came to me during that surgery, it was kind of the same thing, like, I got your back. I'm here. You're good. And how it helped in my work after that, my dad helps me almost every day in my readings. He, especially being like he was a colonel in the Air Force, and that's really helpful. So when he shows up, I'm like, oh, I have a military person here. And then he'll show me like which uniform, so I know what branch of the military they're in. He'll tell me whether they served in the war or not. So he really does help me a lot with my readings. So what's even more beautiful about the experience that I had, my mother didn't talk to me, right? She didn't acknowledge me. She didn't turn around. I'd always been confused by that because I was closer to my mother. So I wondered, why isn't my mom saying, you know, it's good, it's going to be okay? And now, granted, neither one of them spoke, but it was just kind of that you could sense what was happening. And so years later, decades later, in fact, about 2 years ago, I did a reading for a woman who was Asian. And we were talking about, so her mother had come through and we were talking about it. And so I don't know how we got on the subject, but I kind of shared the story that, you know, my mom never talked to me. And she said, if they come in your dreams and they don't acknowledge you and they don't talk to you, it's because they're not coming back. So they're not going to reincarnate. And that's what she believes in her belief system. And my dad is, yes, he's probably coming back because he's the one who acknowledged me and didn't talk to me, but acknowledged me and made me feel like it's okay. I'm going to be fine. And the most interesting part about that, too, is that when you have these experiences near death, out of body, you remember everything. This is back in 2005. I've never written down this story. I don't have to because it was so vivid and it was so profound in my life, and I can describe everything. And I know that I was just hovering over the operating room, you know, communicating, even though we weren't talking, I was talking to my mom and dad who were there to let me know, you got this. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Now I hear you. Kind of.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
The microphone button had slightly pulled out of its
Mercury
place.
retrograde.
Yes, absolutely.
Issues.
Yeah. Well, I noticed just before when I was talking that it had also dropped off the microphone and onto my headphones, and it had done this the other day as well. And so it meant that every time I'm talking, there's a delay. But that's why I'm really onto it today. And so, yes, I'm having all sorts of issues. So we will go from me asking you a question. I'm just rechecking them. Yep, that's cool. Okay, so
that recorded everything?
Yep, we recorded everything of you speaking. So we might, I'll just do the intro again at the end, and I'll cut it here and obviously splice it. So, so the last thing you said was that having your mum and dad here with you is inspiring for your work, didn't you?
My dad, really. My mom doesn't show up as much as my dad.
Okay, so we'll come back on again. So having had this experience with your parents in the operating room, does it feel like it feels to me that, you know, your dad getting out under the hood and doing some work there is almost like a message of like, yep, we got this, we're fixing this, it's under control, yep, all fixed, and off they go. Is that like a, you know, a statement of saying, we're here with you, we're working on it, we're working with you, and your mum's silently holding space?
I've never thought of it that way, but that is perfect. Because even telling this story, it's not a story I share often with people, but it is interesting telling you that he went under the hood and your interpretation of that. I never thought of that, but yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Absolutely. And you know, the feeling that your mum wasn't being silent and ignoring you, she's holding space, which mamas do, right?
Right.
Mamas have this great love and that they're with you. And you know, I just think as a psychic, it must be just such an incredible thing to do with your work when you're speaking with people and you're speaking with their loved ones, where you've actually moved into that space on the next level from what you do. Do you know what I mean? Like here we're getting messages through here, but you actually went into that space that step further. And I think it's almost like a visit to the, you know, to the great towers of realm of where the source comes from. I just think it must be so inspiring for your work to understand that these people are real over there, and realer than you would have known before. That makes sense.
It does. I think what's really interesting too, when I'm doing readings, especially mediumship, I always tell people I'm not here. I'm not 100% here, because I'm giving myself over to spirit so that they can communicate. I allow them to use my body. I allow them to use my memories. I allow them to use all of this. And I'm really not there. I always have pen and paper so I can keep track of who's coming through and the information. And it's so difficult because that's such a left brain thing to do. And here I am over on my right brain communicating. And I'm just not there. And sometimes I'm in this really spacey place. After readings, I kind of have to shake it off. And the more I do this, it's almost like you do go into trance doing readings, whether you like it or not. So every day you're kind of over in that realm. And for me, it's a realm of pure love, pure light.
Absolutely. And I think too that like, do you have the experience, you know, sometimes you're talking to people and suddenly you just, or the only thing you can hear coming out of your mouth is, I hope that makes sense to you, and then at the end you actually have to play the recording back to yourself to know, you know, what the conversation was?
There are a lot of times when things are coming out of my mouth and I'm observing myself saying them and laughing, because I'm like, where is this information coming from? But it's just coming out of my mouth. So that, yeah, that is funny, where, but it's how spirit works.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the things with people is that, you know, everybody sees the movies and the, you know, which is a great descriptor of this work that you do, and of traveling to the other side. But the reality is, like, they have to present it in a way that a viewer can watch it. But the reality is, people that actually have these gifts and don't realize they have them feel like they're hearing some kind of voices, or they've got like downloads and they don't know what they are. And I think sharing with them like how you actually receive messages, it's not like a movie where Whoopi Goldberg is sitting there with, you know, what's his name, and they're making clay and things. It's
Patrick
like,
Swayze.
yeah, like for me it's almost like a picture, or just an instant download of information that's sort of shooting through me and out to them, or you know, they might be talking, and in front of them I can see sort of like a, you know, a tub of yellow daisies or something like
Right.
that. Is that how it works for you? How does it work for you?
For me, I think you just give yourself over, and whatever comes through. For me, it's all my senses, all my six senses. Sometimes I'll see things, I'll hear things, I'll smell things, I'll taste things. I'll just be in the knowing.
Yeah.
I'll get
Actually, smell is a big one, isn't it?
It can be. It can be. Normally the smokers, they come through, I can tell between now, you know, everybody's using marijuana. So marijuana and cigarettes and pipe. And so, yeah, smell is a big one. But smell and taste to me go hand in hand. I think most people, it goes hand in hand. Or a lot of times burning, you know, if a house burned down, you'll smell the house. And so powerful things are shared.
Beautiful. I think sometimes too, when people are questioning, you know, they're asking for fine details, and when you are just smelling smoke and you know, seeing flames and knowing it's a house burning down, you can't see the color of the house. So it's like you can't say, well, it was a yellow house with white windows, because that's not what you're being shown. And I think as a messenger, you're only able to give what you see, you know, without assumptions. And I think it's somewhere where, you know, a lot of people getting readings with psychics and mediums like yourself, I'm not one, but that they mistake this for, you should be seeing it like a movie on the TV. And that's the point I'm getting to, is that you're shown what you're showing, and the messages that you share with them are what comes through in your interpretation of that smell versus the visual that you're given versus the you know, the knowing or the feeling of pain in your body. So it's like, I don't know, it's in the heart area because your heart is hurting when you're speaking to them on a certain level. Does that make sense?
It does. And all you can do is share what spirit gives you. And for me, they're using my memory banks. So I think about, I had a funny story where I had a dad come through and he kept showing me his back. And, you know, I'm like, wow, did you have back pain? He kept showing me like a lump on his back. And I said, oh, you know, he actually, what I'm really getting is the Hunchback of Notre Dame. He went to Notre Dame University. So it was his way of getting me to Notre Dame. And so they do these things. I had one reading where
so it's like spiritual charades.
That's cool. What I call it. It's spiritual charades underwater. It is. It's underwater. What are you saying? Okay. Let me. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Or they're showing you numbers or something, and you're like, "Wait, I'm trying to see it. Let me wade through." Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. And I think, you know, some people, like, what I want to bring out is a conversation with you on putting to bed some of the myths that people have of, like, well, you know, there's only 10 numbers, you sort of pick one in the middle and then try to make it fit something. But as a reader, you're like, I just see this number. So, you know, where does it sit? It's like, it's not saying, okay, his birthday was on this date. It's like I'm being shown a number and then trying to interpret it, so that people can understand that it's, you know, with a good reader, it's not guesswork. It's just simply saying, this is what I'm getting, so I'm not going to try and place it somewhere, but it must mean something to you.
Right. One of the things that's interesting for me, and it happens almost every reading now, is when I get names, they're typically middle names. So it's,
Wow.
yeah. And I say that spirit works with me this way because middle names are not something that you can really find out there. So
That's what just
yeah,
came through was that it's because they don't have the middle names on Facebook, and so they can't say, well,
none of
she's probably
right.
checked my Facebook. Brilliant. That's
And
really
normally when I get numbers, they'll tell me what the number means. So I'll say, I know this isn't a birth date, and I'll know like birth date, anniversary, or the day that they passed, or sometimes they're sharing like kids' birthdays or something significant that happened. But yeah, when they're sharing, it's kind of, you're exactly right. I think Teresa Caputo puts it very well too, that you get this information and it's a puzzle. You're just trying to figure out where this information fits. And then we as the psychics and mediums are trying to get out of our own way, because you can't interpret the information or else you'll screw up the reading. You really have to give it how you get it. And, you know, if you're seeing pink elephants in the room, you share, I got pink elephants, and they'll be like, oh, pink elephants, she gave me one as a teddy bear, you know. So you never know how it fits. So you just give it how you get it. And that's how I teach people too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, you've had some amazing out-of-body experiences through your life, and you've had some visions and things. And I remember hearing you speak about one about spiders. And I know that a lot of people that come to me for therapy and thing have had dreams of spiders or felt spiders around, and they're terrified of it. And, you know, personally, I'm not like, you know, we have a pet huntsman spider here. And, you know, my belief is they watch over the home and they ward off evil spirits. And, you know, your story actually puts to bed that theory that people feel like they're being attacked by them. So what's the story about the spiders?
So I started seeing spiders maybe about 7 years ago. And I would see them in the middle of the night, you know, when you wake up and you're rolling over and you're kind of in that half sleep. Well, I started seeing spiders on my ceiling, and they were big spiders. And I thought, oh, this must be my eyesight. You know, there must be something funky. So I would move my eyes, and the spider should have moved if it was my eyesight, and the spider would stay in the corner. And then they would come out, and sometimes I'd see more than one. And then they were originally black, and they started changing to brown, and sometimes they would be beige colors. I didn't know what was going on, but it never scared me. I just kind of thought, oh, how interesting. I've got these spiders. So of course, you know, we used the internet, and I started Googling it. And I saw that they're astral spiders. And what I read was that they're protectors when you're doing astral travel. And I believe that. I believe that they're protectors for me. And I also believe when a spider crawls towards you, that it's a spiritual awakening. It's kind of the spiders bringing you a message, right? So when these spiders started showing up, I just accepted them. I figure I was doing astral travel. I don't really remember every journey I take, but coming back in, apparently when you re-enter your body, that's when the spiders are there, because they protect you while you're gone, and they wait for you to come back in, and then they disappear. But I readily accept them. I've read some stuff where people were saying they're evil, they're this. It's just, for me, it's just nonsense. You know, you really have to go with your intuition here. For me, when they showed up, I felt comforted by them. Now, they were pretty big, so that was a little, why are they so big? But, you know, I'm comforted by them.
Beautiful. I have a lot of people that under hypnosis, they seem to go to a place where they're talking to like, guides, people that watch over them, and, they get their own counseling there. And so many of them have a spider come up and greet them. And the spider tells them that, they watch over them and that they work with them. They explain how they can know that they're there. And, anytime you feel scared, you'll feel me there. And it's,
Wow.
I just wish that, this conversation would be out there in the world, because so many people don't go on their spiritual journey because they have things like this, and they suddenly think, oh my God, Satan's coming to get me, and he's going to enter my body, and, it's going to be like The Exorcist. And really they are, denying their own beauty, because they're halfway there to their spiritual journey. And if they just walk through that little next step, they're there. And bringing peace to stories like this is really relevant, especially when people are dying. A lot of terminal people actually talk of feeling like there's spiders on their skin and all over the bed and things, and so an understanding that they're there watching them and protecting them and watching over them, and keeping the space for them while they do that journey has got to be reassuring for them.
Yeah, and they're also, I know with some of the clients that I see, because I see a lot of people dealing with cancer in my Reiki practice, and with when they do start maybe becoming more terminal, for lack of a better word, the veil gets very thin. And so they start seeing a little bit of the other side. So you see this a lot on people's deathbeds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they start talking about, I know with my mom, her dad greeted her. And I know that she talked about, this person coming on a canoe, a boat, and they had a lantern. And so I knew, the veil's so thin now that she's seeing the other side. But I know that her dad greeted her. And in some of the readings that I've done too, I remember I did a reading. The really tough ones are when people pass at a young age and you're reading for a parent. Those are just the toughest readings ever. And I read for a woman, and she had lost her daughter at 21. And she asked me, she said, who greeted my daughter? And normally, you don't expect to have an answer, right? And right away, I saw her dog running into her arms and could describe the dog. And I said, her dog greeted her. And the mom just started crying. And because the dog, I guess, had passed like a year before she did. So they were together again. So there's such beautiful stories.
Absolutely. You must really love your work. Like it just must be going to sleep at the end of the night and knowing that you've been of service, and that you've changed lives, and you've brought peace to so many people by being able to, make this connection on their behalf.
I do love my work. Yeah, I absolutely do. I think it's my soul's purpose for being here, and also to help people understand, like you're trying to do too, to take the fear out of it. We have a lot of shows in the United States, like the paranormal, all the paranormal, the ghost shows and stuff. And I just laugh and I say, it's not like that. I just wish some of these ghost shows would bring somebody like me in, and we could go, Johnny's over there in the corner and he'd like to tell you. But they don't do that because that doesn't bring in ratings. So, but my point is, I think it brings in that fear base, because people are afraid of being touched or being possessed, or, so I'm hoping that by coming on shows like yours and doing the work that I do and spreading the word, that it really takes the fear out of doing the work that I do. And a lot of times too, because I'm both a medium and a psychic, people want the psychic information, what's going on in their life. And now I've realized over the years, I really have to ask, hey, I have someone here for you. They'd like to talk. Would you like to hear from, whoever's coming through? A lot of times people don't want it. They're afraid of it. They're afraid of the mediumship part. So you really have to step lightly there.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, like bringing this conversation out into the open on a really natural, normal space. Like,
Right.
my great message that I'm to bring to everybody is that we're all capable of performing miracles. We're all capable of speaking with people on the other side. We're all capable of healing others and the world. And, you know, we're not anyone special, but we've done some work and we know the pathway down there, you know. Like, you know, as a clinical hypnotherapist working with clients, it's like, you have the car, I have the keys. I know the way down. Let's drive you down there. Ask your own questions. You know, I can tell you from what I see and hear, but ask yourself those questions. And then, you know, it's relevant to you and it's real to you. And that is self-empowering to you. You know, not going and doing some course where you're like, you know, I have a BMW. I have a BMW. No, you actually got to go and get a job and the money to get the BMW and do it, but you're capable of that. And, you know, bringing to these conversations that you do this because you've spent your lifetime doing it and opening yourself up as a vehicle of light to be a conduit. And they're capable of that, and they can come and do Reiki sessions with you and begin to clear away the stuff inside them so that they can begin to, you know, hear for themselves. And I think that near-death experiences and, you know, divine intervention is one of those great things that shows a lot of people, you know, you've been a psychic and a medium all your life.
Right.
And for people that have been atheists and non-believers, for them to have an experience like that is absolute, in the moment, life-changing. And in fact, they often come back to sheer terror, because everything that they believe in, the whole world has to crumble before they can build it back up in this new way of knowing and understanding. And, you know, like Reiki is an absolute pathway to this. I find it a very gentle way for people to learn about their energy and to clear things and then to move into the space of healing. And, you know, it's not as harsh as a lot of them. And I just find it really, really beautiful. I'm a Reiki Sage Master myself, so I train people here as well. And I know exactly what you do. And, you know, it's something that they can work with people on the other side of the world, especially during COVID. You know, to me, everyone should be attuning themselves to Reiki. For, you know, like we all have the energy. I call it the energy of love, and the Catholics call it, you know, spiritual healing. The Buddhists call it pranic healing. Everyone has a different name for it. It's the same destination of clear space and clear intent to heal. And it's just a different pathway of getting into that space. But Reiki to me would be just so amazing for people to learn while they're going through this COVID. And they can learn with you via Zoom. They can learn, you know, with any of us via Zoom and get themselves attuned and starting on this pathway for themselves. And then that way they can connect with each other on the other side of the world or the other side of town via Zoom. And I think that, you know, Reiki and your skills there alongside your skills as a psychic and a medium are just such a powerful force there, especially being right in Washington, where there is just so much energetic movement at the moment. Like, it must be just enormous. You know, we feel it all around the world. So imagine being in the center of that. And I think that you have an enormous purpose to, you know, to bring that energy into that area, especially, and into clients, and to, you know, set them on their pathway of self re-enlightenment. I'm really proud of you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
You're
you
welcome.
know, one of the things I wanted to say is, and I'm in lockstep with you, I believe we all know how to heal ourselves. And I believe we can connect with our loved ones. And I try to help people to do that because, and I also help with helping people develop their intuition. And I tell people, you know, as a psychic medium, I'll take anything you get intuitively for yourself over anything I say. because that comes from a genuine place. I mean, not that mine's not genuine, but that you're getting it for yourself. And that's so important. I think it's important. I think some people are born to this. I know I was born to this. Just like, you may get a baseball player who was born with that ability to play baseball, to be a great baseball player, or play the piano. They just are born that way. But I do think that we all can connect to some degree, at least with our loved ones. I'm not sure about connecting with, somebody else's loved ones. That probably takes a little bit of practice and time. But I am absolutely about people taking care of themselves. So when people come to me for Reiki, especially when they're going through chemotherapy or some type of life-altering, illness or dis-ease, I should call it, that it really empowers them to teach them Reiki for themselves, because Reiki 1, that's the first thing we do, is teach you how to do Reiki for yourself and then to give it to other people, like your pets and stuff and your friends.
Absolutely. Have you found with with COVID and what's going on over there, have you found that there's a greater fear in the area around you? Is there a sense of terror that needs to be calmed with healers?
I think there's an uncertainty. I think that's the biggest thing that I see when people are calling me. I'm probably doing more psychic readings now because people are uncertain. Some people maybe are dealing with financial, or maybe they're dealing with loved ones. Everyone seems to be moving. Nobody's traveling, but everybody seems to be moving, and they want to know if it's the right move for them. And so really the uncertainty is what I see. And I am doing a lot more Reiki now, distance Reiki, because I think people just need, one of the things that Reiki is great for is anxiety. So that's one of the protocols you would absolutely use Reiki for. So, and I think people are anxious.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got any predictions around COVID and where it came from and where it's going and what it's here for?
Well, I'll bring out my little astrology hat.
Oh, yes. And you're an astrologist, and you actually have a column in the, is it the Washington Post?
I have a column in Posh 7, which is a metropolitan magazine here, but the Washington Post recently interviewed me, tapping into some of my numerology and astrology and tarot cards. So I got to talk with John Kelly about that. But in the astrology, I actually wrote about this up on my website. I keep blogs, and so I write about. And as an astrologer, we've been looking at 2020 for the past 4 years, talking with the groups that I'm in and stuff, and how catastrophic this was going to be. So you had Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter all in Capricorn, and they're conjoining at different times. Well, when Pluto and Saturn conjoin, you get pandemics. And we had Pluto and Saturn conjoin in January, which I wrote about and said, we're going to look at catastrophes in finances. We're going to look at pandemics. We're going to look at earthquakes. We're going to look at destruction. So 2020, now this energy isn't going to go away till well into 2021. And I actually said, we won't be back to our new normal, because we're not going to get back to normal, but our new normal, you probably see in 2022, that energy start calming down, and probably 2023, we'll be back to a new normal. I think people will be cautious about the coronavirus, COVID-19, for a long time.
Yes, for sure. And we see the stats in America from over here. I live in Canberra in Australia. I'm like 5 minutes from the Prime Minister's house and government house. And here we haven't had a social case for months. And so we live a fairly normal life now. The only cases that come through are all in isolation before they get into here. They're people that travel in from overseas, diplomats and people like that, and they're in quarantine when that's found. So, we are the vision of how it can work. And in Canberra here, we are pretty much back to normal. Restaurants, you go to restaurants and they just have a space around everyone, and there is hand cleaner everywhere. Everyone just cleans their hands now. When we still had cases, everyone just wore masks. It's not a political statement here. It's actually a life critical health and safety measure. And so everyone here just did it. We don't take it as the government's trying to shut us down and they're trying to mask us off. We just did it, and this is the outcome of doing that, of just getting stuck in, doing the time, getting it done, and
We're back up. So today there is not one state in the United States that's green, meaning that doesn't have new cases. So I don't know what the answers are. We're in a tumultuous time here. I always look at what is the universe trying to tell us and share with us with the leadership that we have. Maybe things have to get really bad before people wake up and say, we need something else.
Absolutely.
So,
I think people need to wake from the dream of, politics is like a sports team, and, I've always betted for that team, so I have to keep on. And, then they marry someone that plays for another team. And then it's like, oh no, now what do I do? And I think, waking from that daydream is a big thing. And it's something that we've found over here, that people are different. So people spend more time with their families now. People have learned to work at home. Companies have learned to enjoy having their staff at home because they have those processes in place. And they actually find it really easy to have Zoom meetings, and, everyone's a lot happier. They're actually more fruitful. They've got less overheads, less insurances, less rental, less vehicle costs. That businesses are actually seeing it as a good thing. And I think, in a lot of ways that these will change, and then people will be closer as families, so that life-work balance will become more balanced. And so, I'm just trying to say from our side of the dark tunnel that your country is traveling through at the moment, of us going, let's just do it. Let's all just do it. Do the time, do the 2 weeks.
But see, you have probably maybe 30% of our population of, 350, is it billion or million people? It's million. A million, yeah, that don't believe that COVID is a problem.
Yes.
They don't
we don't have so much of that over here. We're just a little bit more awake than that. But we also don't have a prime minister that's saying,
right.
It's
he takes
joke.
off their mask at every.
Our prime minister is like, guys, this is real. Here's the reality. If we don't do anything, this is what we're looking at. Which one do you want? If we don't do anything, we're not going to be able to go to another country for 10 years because they won't let us in. So let's just do the time.
And that's going to be a big problem.
Absolutely. People from the States aren't going to be able to travel anywhere for a very, very long time.
We're going to be the pariah of the world.
Yeah. And it's going to be really sad.
One of the things I was going to say in line with what you were saying is I've looked at pollution's gotten better in the United States. The air is cleaner. You hear the birds louder. You don't hear planes going over all the time. There have been so many things that have changed that I look and I say, okay, well, maybe we needed some of this. I mean, it's a horrible way to get it, for all the people that lost their lives. Yeah.
A universal wake-up call, right? And I've been asking them here for ages, like, can you put the stats up on the emissions? How are we looking there? It must be just incredible, and there's things starting to come out, like already there's the fish have multiplied incredibly. And, I think
one of the things I noticed, I'm a huge gardener. So one of the things I noticed this year is the multiplication of insects. I've never seen so many mosquitoes and flies, and it's just unbelievable the amount of insects we have.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just some of these weird things, especially as a gardener, I'm so connected when I'm out in my garden. You become part of nature. You're always part of nature, but you really feel it when you're in the garden. And the things I've noticed are are just, things have been off too. Like it's been a strange gardening year. And I'm in a bunch of gardening groups and we're all like, what is going on? There's certain things that are so easy to grow that aren't growing, and things that are more difficult are, growing like crazy. I have more pumpkins than I know what to do with. Normally I don't have pumpkins like this, but the pumpkins have thrived this year. So it's been an interesting year in that perspective.
Absolutely. I think we will see, an incredible outcome and a wake-up call, for everyone to authenticity, and to authentic government, authentic way of living, authentic way of thinking. We don't have our thinking based on you're either red or you're blue. They learned that in Russia in 1921, right? But it's exactly the same as what's happening in the States. Are you red or blue? And it's like, wow, and did they not learn from the Tsar?
Civil War. How about our own Civil War? Didn't we learn from that when you had the North and the South? Like, it's ridiculous to be this divided. We're the United States, united being the operative word.
Absolutely. Yes, divide and conquer is never going to work. But it's also that question of America, what level of rock bottom is your rock bottom? And that's what happens with people that come for alcohol abuse and things. It's like everyone has their rock bottom. Is your rock bottom when you've done something you're ashamed of at home, knocked everything over, or is your rock bottom when an alcoholic will always drink with someone that drinks more than them until there's no one left that drinks more than them to drink with, and they wake up in the gutter in their own vomit? Is that the level of rock bottom, or what level of rock bottom is our rock bottom to change our way of thinking and walking in the world and how we treat those around us?
I do think it's serving a purpose. I do. But I don't want to take away from people who've lost loved ones during this.
No, absolutely.
I don't want to minimize that and say, isn't
no.
Yeah.
And absolutely not taking away from those people. And yes, that's clearly not in the conversation, and in fact it's part of the whole universal conversation of awareness that we are in a vehicle that is susceptible to cliffs put right on the edge of the road, that sometimes
we live in a skin bag. This is just a skin bag. It is.
And it's incredible how many people who have had near-death experiences sort of talk about leaving their body and saying, oh yeah, and there was they were standing over this person, and I looked at the person, saw the face, and I'm like, oh, it's oh my God, I think it's me. And they describe it almost as a skin bag. It was like just this lifeless thing that meant nothing to me. And
it's funny how I see people too. So you probably do the same thing. I see people as spirit before I see them as human.
Beautiful.
So you kind of see the light coming out of people, and before you ever see the skin that they're in.
Yeah, beautiful. Are you writing any books, or are you doing anything along those lines?
No. I wish I blog. I normally blog.
What's your blog called?
It's on my Medium, AnnieLarson.com. It's on my website, the blog. I'll write about, I've been writing about experiences that I had as a kid. I had a lot of ghost encounters and spirit encounters, so I've been writing about those. It's been kind of fun and cathartic for me to get those out on paper. And then I try to keep up with the astrology. So big things are coming. I have a blog written halfway right now that I wanted to get out before the 13th, which was Mercury retrograde. But, we're going to have another conjunct of Saturn and Pluto. So that's going to be.
Say, what's your predictions? Can we have a heads up on?
Well, I think the election will be out of Mercury retrograde, so I'm happy about that. So communication should flow that day. That's what I'm hoping. But 2 weeks after the election, we're going to have a big brouhaha. I'm not sure if this is going to be, contesting the election, or if something big is going to happen. But we have another big explosion until we hit the solstice, the winter solstice. And then with the winter solstice, we'll start seeing things start calming down. And in fact, in January, we have Taurus moving from, Uranus is in Taurus right now, and Uranus is going to move into Aquarius, and you're going to see a massive change. It going from Taurus to Aquarius, because it doesn't tolerate, Uranus doesn't tolerate anything that doesn't serve you anymore. So with it moving into Aquarius, we're going to see a massive, massive change, almost like that age of Aquarius. So that's why I kind of think, you know, I can't say because I don't get it, but looking at the astrology of it, I do think a kinder, gentler person will be in office because of these movements in Aquarius. We also have Saturn moving into Aquarius. We also have, I believe Jupiter moves into Aquarius. It also moves into Scorpio a little bit later on in the year. So you'll have that Aquarian energy, that age of Aquarius, where things will be more about humanity. So that's why I think maybe we'll have kinder and gentler. And this happens around the time, so it happens January 19th, and the next day we would be inaugurating somebody. So looking at the astrology, I would say the kinder, gentler person is going to win and take over. But there's going to be a brouhaha about this. So I would think that this is going to be contested. I hope it isn't. But there's definitely going to be something. I hope it's not Wall Street. I hope it's not something like that. But we do still have, you know, Pluto and Saturn we have to contend with in their last conjunction. And, you know, things get really nasty when that happens, just like it did in January when we saw COVID come in.
So you think when there's the brouhaha, it won't it won't be like a civil war that's going to break the country down over a year? You think it's going to be sort of short, sharp, and dealt with?
I personally, beyond my wildest dreams, cannot imagine the United States being at a civil war. Beyond my, like, that's beyond my wildest imagination. I can't imagine that ever happening again. I do think there's going to be, you know, protests, maybe protesting in the street.
So civil unrest.
Civil unrest, yeah, that we'll see some civil unrest. You know, it could be about the election. I hope not. I hope it goes smoothly. I'm really counting on Mercury being out of retrograde and helping us out on November 3rd for this not to be a contested election, because I think that really tears the United States, you know, Absolutely. At its seams. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't think that the civil unrest will last too long? Like, it's not looking like a year thing, or sort of a...
No. I don't see that. I don't see that, because you have some of those, the movement of Saturn and Jupiter going into Aquarius. So that's that kinder, gentler sign. So that will be very helpful. We also have Mars in Aries, which is firing everything up. And Mars is going to move out of Aries. So that will help. It'll help a lot. And you know, if you look at that, Mars is in Aries, its native position, and we've got all these fires out in California. And I know Australia dealt with fires. So to me, it's just like this burning up of, you know, various places in the United States. But I'm hoping it's going to bring us to enlightenment about climate change, and that we need to start living our lives differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just really enjoyed this talk. Is there courses that you could do? Is there people that can come to you for readings? You do readings online?
I do readings by phone, and I'm also doing Zoom classes for intuitive, psychic, mediumship development, and also Reiki, of course. And yeah, and doing readings, and it's at Medium Annie with an IE, Larson with an R and an O.com. So mediumannielarson.com. Beautiful. And I do international too. So it's pretty easy to do international in this day and age.
All right, fantastic. And I'll put those details in the bottom of the page. Now, so in closing, I wanted to ask you, if if you could imagine now that you're sitting here and we have with us someone that has just been diagnosed as terminal, and they are going through a terror, you know, of the act of dying and where they go there, what would you say? What would you personally, from out of your experiences and who you are in this life, what would you say to that person to help them understand, you know, what you have seen yourself that it is?
It was John Lennon's birthday on October 9th. And I always quote John Lennon because he was never afraid of dying. And he said, you just open the door and get out of one taxi into another. So
beautiful.
Yeah. And that's kind of, you know, you're going back to love, you're going back to light, where you came from, you're going back to source. And it really is like when you go to sleep at night, you know, you let go. You let go, and it's just opening that door to a taxi and getting in the next taxi.
Yep, beautiful. And you're not alone when you get there, like, you know, firsthand from throughout your life and your
Yes.
near-death experience, that there are those that are that close to you now. The only difference is that you will see them clearly and feel them clearly. It's that
They'll embrace you. And that happens a lot in readings. I know who greeted them and who was there for them. And yeah, you know, if you believe in soul groups too, that we go back to our soul groups. So our soul groups are just there waiting for us to embrace them again.
beautiful. And if you were talking to someone that's watching over someone who's going through, you know, the active dying journey, and you know, a lot of these people have never had a thought of spirituality or you know, where we go from here, what would you say to them as they watch over someone? You know, a lot of them, you know, talk to me as a death doula about, it's terrifying, she's hallucinating, she's seeing people, she's doing this. Like, what would you say to these people to help them understand, you know, that this is real to their loved one?
The one thing I would say is they're going to want to die alone. This happens all the time. Even in my own family, I've seen it. It's so funny. You'll have this vigil by the bedside, and then you go out to get a cup of coffee and they pass. And I don't know what it is, but we feel a lot of guilt about that. And I would want people to release that guilt. You know, I think people leave how they want to leave. The other thing too is just hold their hand, be there for them. I know with my own family, the people I've lost in my life, tell them it's okay to go. Tell them it's okay. It's time. It's okay. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay, and you're going to be okay, and we're going to meet again. But just let them know it's okay to go. It's
Beautiful.
okay. 'Cause I think sometimes people have a hard time, you know, leaving. They don't want to leave. Moms don't want to leave their kids. It's unnatural.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, people feeling the guilt that they weren't there, and they have this vision of their parent being extremely alone as they took their last fighting breath. But to the person that is actively dying, to them it's like, I don't want to see them see me choking and doing
Right.
that, so I need to wait for a private moment so that I'm not looking ghastly. And
Think about it. I know that you work with animals. Animals, when they're sick, what do? They hide.
absolutely, yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they leave.
Yeah.
They leave, and they want to be alone. And the other thing too that I tell people is, when you have somebody who's in that death process, they're already partially on the other side. So they're already having experiences. It's normally that last 3 days, I can feel it really strongly. Even when people are sick and I'm doing a reading, I'll pick up and I'll say, you've got a loved one who's between two worlds, you know? And so they're already greeting the loved ones on the other side. They're already getting those images, like my mom seeing her dad. She used to call him, you know, Dada or something like that. But she was saying that. She was seeing her dad off and on for about 4 days.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Annie. It was a pleasure to have you on the show today, and I hope that you've inspired so many people to come and, you know, learn Reiki from you, and learn to you know, strengthen that energy and those fears inside, and be able to connect with their family and things all around the world, especially with COVID. I think it's going to be the new travel medium for Americans.
Yeah, Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Zoom.
No.
Love you. And definitely come for a reading. I'm going to book myself in, and I just absolutely loved having you here.
Oh,
And
thank you.
Thank you so, so much.
Thank you. I love being here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. Anjii is available for clinical hypnotherapy, specializing in PTSD, trauma release, and active living and regression therapy via Zoom. To book or find out more about online workshops, you can contact her at anjieb@gmail.com or visit her Facebook page and YouTube channel, Anjii Bryers Biofield Therapy, or go to her website, canberraholisticcenter.com, spelled with a W. If you like this podcast, don't forget to review, like, and subscribe.